Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to explore a really fascinating shift that's currently happening in the modern workplace. We're diving deep into author Syed Amar Hussein Banori's comprehensive research on something called blind recruitment. Now, if you've ever wondered how companies can truly guarantee fairness when they're hiring, or honestly, if you've ever questioned whether the actual best person is getting the job, well, this is absolutely for you. We're going to break down exactly how this innovative approach is completely transforming the way organizations build their teams. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We've got four main stops. What is blind recruitment? Why blind hiring actually matters? Some real-world success stories, and finally, four practical steps to implement it. All right, part one, what is blind recruitment? Let's start with the basics and uncover those sort of invisible forces that influence hiring. So the whole crux of this method is that it actively strips away personal details from resumes and applications. Just picture a standard resume for a second. Right at the top, you've got a name, maybe some subtle indicators of age, gender, ethnicity, and of course, educational background. Well, blind recruitment basically takes a giant digital black marker to all of that. The overarching goal here is to literally stop unconscious biases before they even have a split second to form. By removing all of those identifiers, you're creating a truly level playing field for all candidates, which means their actual, hard qualifications get to stand front and center. Moving right along to part two, why blind hiring matters. Let's see how this actually solves some pretty major psychological and organizational headaches. There is just a massive, stark contrast between judging a candidate based on familiar traits versus their actual capabilities. In a traditional hiring process, recruiters and hiring managers might look at a resume and, completely unconsciously, by the way, favor someone based on personal characteristics. Maybe they went to the same college, or maybe a certain name just unconsciously signals a specific background. This leads directly to unfair hiring and drastically reduces diversity. Blind recruitment, it completely flips the script. It forces the hiring manager to focus solely on the stuff that actually predicts job performance, skills, experience, and competencies. And by making this shift, organizations unlock three core benefits that Benori outlines in his research. First step, it powerfully promotes diversity and inclusion. When you select purely on merit, you naturally get a more diverse workforce, and research proves that directly boosts innovation, creativity, and problem solving. Second, it drastically reduces that unconscious bias we just talked about. Managers often have blind spots they aren't even aware of, but with personal details gone, those blind spots don't get triggered. Finally, it enhances fairness and transparency. When candidates know they're being evaluated purely on merit, it builds incredible trust and helps companies build a rock-solid reputation for highly ethical hiring. Okay, part three, real-world success stories. Because it's one thing to talk about the theory, right? Let's look at the hard data. The proof is literally right here in the numbers. Get this, when companies in the technology and financial sectors actually adopted blind recruitment, they saw a staggering 30% rise in minority hires. 30%. That is a massive shift. By simply taking those personal details off the applications, these industries saw a profound increase in hiring candidates from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. We're not talking about a minor statistical bump here. This is a structural transformation in who gets access to top-tier jobs when you just take bias out of the equation. And this success isn't just limited to tech and finance either. Government agencies all over the place have run extensive public sector trials, and the results? Female and minority applicants had a significantly higher likelihood of progressing to the interview stage when their identifiers were scrubbed. We see the exact same pattern playing out in higher education and research, too. When universities use this method to select research fellows and faculty, it directly resulted in more women in underrepresented groups landing those critical career-defining positions. The data is crystal clear. Removing identifiers pushes diverse candidates way further into the hiring pipeline. Which brings us to part four steps to implement. So how do we actually make this a practical reality in our own organizations? Benori outlines a super clear four-step playbook to successfully adopt this method. Let's break each one of these down. Step one is the absolute foundation. You got to remove that identifiable information. This means physically or digitally redacting those personal details before the resume ever hits the hiring manager's desk. You can use specialized software that anonymizes applications automatically, or hey, you can literally just have an HR person manually black out names, ages, genders, and school names. The whole point is to create a firewall so that the decision maker only sees the professional qualifications, nothing else. Okay, step 2, standardize the interview questions. Once candidates actually make it to the interview stage, you have to ensure every single person faces the exact same set of structured questions. If you just sort of wing it and have a casual chat, unconscious bias is going to creep right back in. By using predefined questions for everyone, you minimize those subjective evaluations and make sure you're truly comparing apples to apples. Step 3 is all about the prove it phase. Use skill-based assessments. Instead of relying entirely on a standard interview where, let's be honest, someone might just be super charismatic but not actually great at the job, introduce work samples, case studies, or practical tests. You want to mirror the actual day-to-day tasks of the role. This evaluates their real performance, completely bypassing subjective gut feelings. And finally, step 4. You have to train your hiring managers. A system is really only as good as the people running it, right? Providing unconscious bias training to your recruiters and managers is absolutely crucial. You need to actively train them to recognize their own blind spots and really reinforce why objective, merit-based decision-making is so vital. This just makes sure the whole team gets the why behind the process. So blind recruitment isn't just some trendy HR buzzword. It's a remarkably powerful tool for promoting true fairness and diversity. By focusing solely on skills, companies build a much more talented workforce. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. Take a hard look at your own team's practices and ask yourself, is your system truly equitable? Are you actually hiring the absolute best talent out there, or are you just hiring the most familiar? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning how we can build better, fairer systems.